boiling inflation, widespread poverty, political meltdown. These are just some of the problems facing the people of Zimbabwe. The Catholic Church is doing its utmost to bring hope to a desperate situation. But where does the focus of her efforts lie, and what are the roots of the Church in this land?
Concerning the history of the Catholic Church in Zimbabwe, well, some people who did the initial efforts, to evangelize this country as far back as the 16th century.
Now, when we are speaking of the early history of the Church, then we are looking at the history of the Church that is not just of Zimbabwe, but of the region rather, because there was no Zimbabwe at that time, there was no Rhodesia at that time. It was the Mwenemotapa Empire. That is when we had the first missionaries from Portugal under the leadership of Gonzalo da Silveira, Father Gonzalo da Silveira. He is the man who baptized the first emperor, Nekomo Mupunza Gutu, that was his name, and his mother and the rest of the family. But unfortunately, these missionary efforts died off because Father Gonzalo da Silveira was killed, apparently in a conspiracy which involved some Muslim traders in Tete in Mozambique.
And the second attempt was only made in the 19th century, which was then successful with Portuguese missionaries coming from Mozambique across the eastern border of Zimbabwe and then into the country.
Firstly, it was Protestant missionaries who came in, and later Catholic missionaries joined. Now, the Catholic missionaries came into the country with the pioneer column of Cecil John Rhodes.
Well, since then the church has spread all over the country, covering the 8 dioceses of which we now have of Zimbabwe. Well, so much then perhaps for the initial efforts at evangelizing, this country.
Before independence, before 1980, you find most of the missions that we have were already established. In fact, there are very few missions that we established after 1980. There was not much alliance between the Catholic Church and the state as there would have been between the Anglican Church and the state. And therefore you find that during the war of liberation of this country, the Catholic Church was quite outspoken in the defense of the local people against the Rhodesians, for instance.
The political situation in Zimbabwe for Catholics is a bit challenging in the sense that we have our Catholic faithful involved very strongly in politics. They are all coming to church, but they are not belonging to the same parties. The same people whom we are preaching to sometimes, when they now go outside there, they tend to turn against each other.
In 1982 to about 86, there was a civil disturbance which we usually call Gukrahondi. People were killed. About 20,000 people lost their lives in Matabeleland and Midlands. So that trauma is still there.
I would say right from the 1980s, when we thought we had got independence and the democratic system was promising. But really, if you look at the way how the elections were held, just from there, it was a lot of violence was involved. And that fear was really instilled in the larger population. When the elections were robbed from them, they were so demoralized, so much that they no longer trust the whole system.
So that trauma is still there. That fear is still there. But we cannot live with that fear forever and ever. We need to move on. We need to build, we need to change.
we are trying to conscientize our Catholics that we become mature, that politics is not meant for you to shed blood.
I don't know, we would like to see that there is a real, clear harmony among the people. No matter which party or which opinion do I have, right? But to live in this multi-party society where real and true democracy can prevail.
Children are brought up with differences. Some are already angry with each other because they simply belong to different parties and to different families. And as a church, we cannot watch this and keep quiet. We need to reach out to help reconcile the children so that their influence can also go to the parents. And I see education as one of the only powerful tools still at our disposal. We have been approached as a church if we could establish a school. These premises we are in have been granted to the Catholic Church, and this building is meant for a church. The community comes to pray here on Sundays. During the week, the children are learning here, and on Sundays we come to worship. We hope by God's grace that we will be able to build a school where the children will be able to learn well. When children get sick, they are sent to nearby hospitals where there's generally not enough medicine. And because of that, they are given prescriptions, asked to go and buy the medicine, and most of them cannot afford it. So the children sometimes just come to school sick because they can't afford the medicine. I'm reminded of that because of this young child I'm seeing here. They stand on the bench there. This is rash. It can be treated, but unfortunately, probably there is no money to buy the medicine. It just comes to school. Our real concern is if it spreads to other children, then a school won't be that good place to send children to. So we are very much concerned, but we are happy that they are contented themselves. Thank you. Good boy.
Follow, follow, follow. Follow the leader. I clap, I clap, I clap. 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 I jump, I jump, I jump. 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 I sit, I sit, I sit.
Illnesses in the schools. We have some really identified cases of children with AIDS. Now they are asked to go to get medicine from time to time, particularly in the rural areas. And the cost of transport from their place to the big hospitals is very, very expensive. You always watch it with tears dropping because you can't do much, you can't help everybody. And yet the desire is there.
I think children of Zimbabwe loves to go to school because they know that education is the key to success. If there is no education, there is no life. But we can see that we do not have enough resources at schools.
No exercise books, no adequate resources for their family members to support them. So it's so difficult for us to go to school.
When we opened the school this term, one school had only 2 teachers out of 15. Another school had 3, also out of 15. And the third school had only 1 teacher out of 12.